Who can resist a relaxing wilderness building episode before bed? A true blessing for night owls. After watching, you'll drift off peacefully. Grab your phone, about 70% battery will do, and find the comfiest spot to lie down. Xiao Li, fresh off a failed blind date, just wanted to escape reality. Or head into the mountains in freezing weather, and build a cabin from the pallet he'd stored ahead of time. As the saying goes, prepare for 1,000 days, use it for a moment. Today's finally the big day. Time to put those long-abandoned pallet racks to good use. A small section was joined together to form the base. The planks were cut to equal lengths and nailed in place. Just like that, the flooring was done. Just saw off the excess flooring. For the cabin's columns, he used a 3-in-1 method to join the planks, giving each column solid load-bearing strength. Once all the columns were in place, the columns were secured to the foundation with heavy iron nails. These Catholic posts, Xiao Li set up over a dozen of them for the cabin, keeping the structure steady and wobble-free. He also shaped the ends of the boards into supports. The construction of the wooden house is measured in the same way. Even though the weather is very cold at this time, Xiao Li, focused on building, works efficiently without wasting a moment. Thinking about both comfort and the aesthetic of living in a wooden house, Xiao Li chooses a roof with a human-like structure. But the corners need to be made from square-cut wood, so the roof frame can be firmly secured. Once that's done, Xiao Li gathers some soil from around the site. He's planning to build a log cabin first. After all, in such cold weather, having a fireplace means you can enjoy its warmth right away. First, build the base of the fireplace with stones and soil. Then add a layer of dirt on top, making sure the entire surface is level. Next, mix the dirt using his size 38 little feet. Now, the fireplace can be built using wild red bricks. It seems like a pretty straightforward process. And honestly, it's not that complicated. For Xiao Li, with 2.5 years of experience building walls, it's just second nature. Finally, thanks to his excellent craftsmanship, it only takes a moment for Xiao Li to create a very delicate little structure. Once it was finished, he couldn't wait to light the fireplace. With the fire burning, the rising smoke instantly gives the place a cozy, homey feel. Xiao Li quickly made himself a cup of hot tea, immersing in this little world that belongs solely to him. After a short, simple break, he got back to work on the next project. He grabbed the binding tool and nailed the windproof cloth to the wooden house frame, ensuring there would be no drafts during the cold winter. True to his 30 years of single-handed experience, he quickly covered the entire roof with tile, then layered it again with planks, making the wooden house frame look solid and sturdy. Everything went smoothly, with no accidents along the way. The finished frame looked beautiful, and Xiao Li couldn't help but take a photo, admiring his masterpiece for a long time. All the beautiful moments in life are worth capturing, and the cabin's ventilation and lighting are thoughtfully designed. He also left space for a window on the front wall as an exit. Then he continued installing the remaining wainscoting. Time passed to the steady rhythm of hammer strikes, and before long, another busy and fulfilling day had come to an end. The next day, Xiao Li worked on completing the other half of the window, exactly as planned. With the experience gained from earlier construction, he was able to work much faster. This way of stacking the panels not only looks beautiful, and it's also perfect for keeping out wind and rain. Although it's a simple task, fortunately, out here in the wild, no one is there to rush him. So why not enjoy working at his own pace? With the surrounding wall panels completed, the next step is to lay the roof. By this point, he had turned into a relentless machine, working tirelessly on his new home. Fortunately, after 2.5 days of non-stop effort, Xiao Li finally completed a result he was satisfied with. Once finished, he lit the warm wall coverings and prepared himself a hearty dinner as a reward. Life in the wild isn't always easy when it comes to food and drink. In winter, the hills are shrouded in fog and pine, looking like a scene straight out of a fairy tale. Today, he would focus on decorating the interior of the wooden house. You can't have ancient fish and bear's paw at the same time. But today, a warm wooden house is enough to save money and stay comfortable. That's right, Xiao Li used weeds to fill the gaps in the wall panels, solving a centuries-old problem. Since it's free, he could use whatever he wanted. Although the method looks rough, in the future, the wooden house's insulation won't be any worse than a regular cowshed. It's not complicated, and it's not heavy manual labor, so it didn't take Xiao Li much time or energy to complete the house's warming measures. Finally, several pallet racks were brought in and stacked on top of each other, creating a warm bed. Other supporting furniture in the house was also made from pallet racks. To be fair, Xiao Li not only has the skills, but the results are also visually impressive. I still can't understand what went wrong with his blind date. Once all the indoor work was done, he installed the wild glass he had picked up along the road, the finishing touch for his new home. Now everything is ready, except for the shelter door. Of course, for Xiao Li, this was an easy task. Once completed, the door was fitted snugly into the frame. To make opening and closing easier, Xiao Li cleverly made a door handle and a latch. All that was left was to light the fireplace. He had built his very first home in the wilderness. All his previous efforts finally paid off in this moment. Before he realized it, the sky had darkened. Xiao Li hurried to store some firewood in his shed, preparing well for the coming winter. To celebrate the completion of his new home, he had prepared a feast. The main dish was premium meat from his second senior brother. He chopped onions for the side dish, added carrots to the pot, and stir-fried them together, making the most of the cooking time. Xiao Li lit a candle inside the room. The whole house looked cozy and inviting. Then he returned to the warm room, chopped some more tomatoes, and added them to the pot to cook together. This way, he prepared a nutritious and delicious meal. Finally, he sprinkled in some seasonings to bring out the flavors. Life in the wilderness couldn't get much better than this. Autumn is usually a season of joy, a time when the harvest fills life with abundance. But Xiao Li felt no happiness. His blind date had ended in failure. Disheartened, he chose to retreat deep into the wilderness, determined to spend the rest of his life there. After all, compared to the noise and chaos of the city, a quiet, solitary life in nature seemed far more appealing. He took a small axe and sharpened the ends of several wooden sticks, then drove them into the ground one by one, connecting them together with a length of white cord. This marked the boundaries of the place where he planned to build his new home. Although the foundation area didn't seem very large, it was more than enough for him to live alone, and a smaller house would also mean greater safety and warmth. Once the trench for the foundation was dug, Xiao Li began gathering stones from the surrounding area. He prepared them to build a solid stone base for his shelter. Life in the wild can be pretty tough. Luckily, the soil on this mountain is sticky enough. Just add some clean water, mix it well, and you get good quality clay. Of course, it's not as strong as concrete, but it's more than enough to build a simple mud house. The steps might look easy, but in reality, building sturdy walls takes real skill. If the beams aren't lined up correctly, the structure can tilt and even collapse later on. Xiao Li finally finished building the foundation and the Kong bed. He quickly fed his dog, then went straight back to work. Thanks to the abundance of deadwood in the forest during autumn and winter, he was able to gather plenty of logs with ease. These would serve as the base beams for the floor. He cut them to match the length and width of the foundation, and to make the logs fit more securely. He carved grooves along their surfaces. To keep the foundation stable, he nailed the floorboards one by one onto the beams. To make the wall construction easier, Xiao Li decided to build the doorframe first. That way, the whole project had a solid start. Next came the walls, built from timber gathered on the mountain. Thanks to his past building experience, the work became much easier than it looked. He also left space for 2 windows to ensure good ventilation and natural light inside. Xiao Li could already picture himself sitting on the windowsill, soaking in the warm sunlight in the future. Whether it's reading a book or sipping tea, it will be cozy. Xiao Li worked quickly, and before long he had the roof beams in place. Then he polished the final details, leaving the structure looking neat and beautiful. At last, he could pause, relax, and take in the peaceful scenery around him. After a short break, Xiao Li got back to work on the shelter, in order to stay warm and comfortable through the coming winter. And of course, a good shelter means steady warmth through the cold season. And later, it will be very convenient to boil water or cook meals. After chopping the pickled shallots, the fireplace was finally complete. Then Xiao Li gathered wild wooden planks and began working on the ceiling. Hours of heavy labor had tested him, both physically and mentally. But the thought of one day living alone in this new home he built gave him the strength to keep going. No matter how tough the process was, Xiao Li pressed on by himself. He carved a groove at one end of the log, so the roof base could connect firmly in place. For the roof design, Xiao Li chose a pointed spire style. This roofline is not only strong and reliable, but it also gives the house a unique, almost foreign look. Of course, he had to remember to leave space for a chimney vent. Once the chimney was built, the fireplace for the little home was finally complete. Excited, Xiao Li quickly gathered firewood and lit the fireplace, with the fire crackling inside and smoke curling into the sky. The whole place felt alive. The warmth not only comforted Xiao Li, but also gave him more focus and strength to continue building his shelter. The extra eaves were sawed off, and the ceiling boards were put in place. Before long, the clear skies began to fade, and another busy, fruitful day ended with the setting sun. The next morning, Xiao Li returned early. His main task for the day was to set the roof. The work itself wasn't too hard, but without any safety measures, his efficiency was low, and the morning fog didn't make things easier. Still, Xiao Li stayed focused and kept working on the roof of his shelter. In just 2.5 days, he finally completed the roof. For a short while, Xiao Li tried going on another blind date. As expected, the result was disappointing. So, he returned to focus on finishing his shelter. The freezing weather had already numbed his longing for love. His first step was to build a workbench, which would make his next tasks much easier. He decided to start with the doors and windows, to protect himself from the wind and snow. After securing the window frame, he prepared for the next stage of construction. Then he carefully nailed the glass in place. Finally, all that was left was to add the latch and lock, securing it to the frame. The result was a simple but beautiful window. Xiao Li was clearly pleased with his craftsmanship. The clear sunny weather also lifted his spirits. Even in the middle of winter, the warm sunlight shining down made him feel comfortable. Next, he quickly built a sturdy door for the shelter, using the same method as before. To keep it from looking too plain, he burned decorative patterns into the wood and fixed them onto the door. This not only made the door stronger, but also gave it a more refined appearance. With lotus leaves layered on top, the door was ready to be used. Then, to make the door easier to open and close, Xiao Li crafted a wooden handle and a sturdy bolt with his excellent carpentry skills. With that, the door was finally complete. Using the leftover wood, he quickly built a bed about 1.5 meters long, secured with iron chains. The bed was strong and steady enough to sit or lie on without worry. In addition to a bed, he also needed a table. To maximize storage space, Xiao Li added a drawer to the desk. He couldn't figure out why, with such good craftsmanship, his blind dates always failed. Finally, he installed 2 side chairs for the wooden table, which made it much more stable. After a short break, Xiao Li used a few curved logs to quickly build a firewood rack. This way, all the messy firewood could be stored neatly. Even though it was hot, Xiao Li didn't slow down. He decided to make a light stand for his new home, to make the place as warm and cozy as possible. He crossed a few wooden planks together to form a base, then added a partition next to it, which created the lamp holder. Next, he dipped it in kerosene and wrapped it tightly around a glass bottle. Using the principle of thermal expansion and contraction, he managed to break the glass cleanly. With that, he had a simple lampshade. He just needed to attach an iron chain to it, hang the glass bottle, and it instantly became a beautiful chandelier. To be fair, it worked surprisingly well. The place finally began to feel like a real home, since it was still early in the day. Xiao Li thought about the missing stool in his house, and immediately got to work without hesitation. Even without any blueprints to follow, he remembered the entire process by heart. Before long, he had crafted a delicate stool with a backrest that matched the height of the table perfectly. It was very ergonomic and comfortable to use. After finishing his work, Xiao Li went into the forest behind the mountain to gather some unusual items. He didn't even know what they were called, but with just a little treatment, he was able to turn them into a practical shelf. It reminded him that details are everywhere in life. As long as you pay attention, you'll realize that everything around you can be beautiful. Later, Xiao Li brought back a pile of animal furs and spread them inside the compartment of the bed frame. On top, he laid out his night blanket and fixed it neatly with a binding tool. It wasn't as soft as a Simmons mattress at home, but out here in the wilderness, having such a setup already felt like true comfort. With the leftover fabric, he quickly sewed a pillowcase, stuffed it with dry grass, and made himself a soft, comfortable pillow. By 2:30 in the afternoon, light snow began to fall outside, causing the temperature in the mountains to drop again. But inside his newly built shelter, Xiao Li quietly arranged bottles and jars, filling his home with a warm and cozy atmosphere. In this small space filled with the warmth of human life, Xiao Li carefully prepared dinner for himself. Just looking at the scene was already heartwarming. Xiao Li chopped up some onions, pour it into the oil pan. The onions quickly released their fragrance. He then minced some garlic, also pour into the pot. Next came a handful of wild mushrooms. They added both flavor and nutrition to the dish. To balance the taste, he poured in some milk. He seasoned it with cumin and chili flakes. Finally, he mixed everything together and added the fried chicken thighs. While the food was cooking, Xiao Li lit the candles on his lampstand one by one. The little home instantly filled with a warm, cozy glow. Once everything was set up, the food was just about ready to come off the stove. It might not look fancy, but it was packed with nutrition. For Xiao Li, that was enough. Living in a cozy little shelter, enjoying a hot meal. This was the simple life he had always dreamed of. If only he had a phone and, maybe even a girlfriend. He felt he could stay there forever. Good times always seemed to pass too quickly. Before he knew it, the sky had already grown dark. Xiao Li hung a kerosene lamp by the door, filling the whole shelter with a warm glow. He went back inside, letting go of the day's exhaustion, and soon drifted off into a peaceful sleep. This is where Xiao Li's story comes to an end. See you in the next video, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.